the most wonderful time of the year. Welcome to Cordkillers Reckoning. The world of entertainment is turned upside down, and me and my friend Brian Brushwood, we're just trying to find out how to watch what we want, where we want, whenever we want. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian, where's the good stuff?
It's somewhere in the sound of my brain short-circuiting as I went Black History Month, President's Day, the Super Bowl.
Cordkillers.
Oh, so the one time of the year that we're doing Cordkillers. I see.
Yeah, I said year. I guess most wonderful time of the week would be appropriate for a weekly show. You're right.
How many days per year? I guess the answer is 248. Yeah, I guess
it's one of those numbers.
One full day per year. We do this program.
There are 52 weeks in a year. We don't do one every single week. So yeah, 40 something. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And about 2 hours per stream. I guess we do 4 days nonstop of this show.
Yeah.
4 days every year. That's pretty. Wait, which means over our 15-year run, that ends up being 22. Wait. 200 days? Have we spent 200 nonstop days of our life?
Now, see,
a full year, probably considering the other stuff that we do. Tom, happy 1 year anniversary.
You too, Brian. Screw this 1000th episode stuff. This is what you celebrate right here.
A year of my life with you.
Yes. Wow. Likewise.
The majority of our friendship has been
that's kind of lovely, actually. I really like that we stumbled upon this. Yeah. Well, let's start with a topic that Brian has been preparing his entire life for in the supply run.
Supply run.
A new trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps came out on Tuesday last week, just after we recorded Cordkillers, giving Brian a full week to meditate, watch, ruminate, consume the internet controversies about, discover the Easter eggs. Brian, first of all, explain to the folks who may be joining us for the first time, why are you such a fan of Fantastic Four? Where does this come from?
Well, as I'm quick to point out, you don't really get to choose some of the things that you imprint on. You know, I just happened to have chickenpox and got an Iron Man comic, and it became my favorite. And then I graduated to the Hulk. But ultimately, the Fantastic Four became very, very precious to me. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that world. And yes, it broke my heart again and again and again to see the Fantastic Four never get their due. And for about half a decade, Tom, I've been saying should be an alternate reality, retro future, should be set in 1960, should be a period piece. It should be unironic, take it on the Reds. It should be at the moonshot and all of that stuff. And to be honest, on this latest run up, the only hint we had gotten that was, as close to a press release that I was going to get my wish was the Valentine's Day card 1 year ago, right, where it showed the family portrait of the entire Richards family and Ben, complete with a photo in the background of Ben in human form. And it looked an awful lot like it was going to be in a retro future 1960s. And then finally, all of my dreams were answered with the very, very good trailer that was missing a bunch of things that sparked a little bit of controversy. One of the things that was missing, actually, first, Tom,
yes,
your impression before I start info dumping all of the
yes. No, yeah. I intend to be guided by you. I have some experience with Fantastic Four, but I never read it as a kid. When Comixology came along 10, 12 years ago, I went on a Silver Age run, read a bunch of Amazing Spider-Man and some of the early Fantastic Four, and became very aware of how they had done four, but they weren't always fantastic in the movies, even compared to the Silver Age stuff, which is, somewhat dated when you go back and look at it with adult eyes. But I like these characters. And I even thought the first run of movies was okay, right? It wasn't X-Men level, but it was okay. The second run was very disappointing. So when I saw that they were doing the retro future thing, which you had called correctly, but I was very much excited by the idea of, because I like a For All Mankind kind of vibe, season one For All Mankind, and that's what we're getting with this. I was like, okay, this looks really good. Watching this trailer, I thought, this looks great. I love these characters. I love these actors. I think they look like they're doing a good job. And I can't wait to see what story they're going to tell. It actually, for the first time in a couple of years, made me think, I might go see a Marvel movie on day one, or at least weekend one. Cause I've kind of gotten to, even in some cases, just like, whenever they hit Disney Plus, I'll watch it then.
So we'll start with the world that it's set in. First of all, I love retro future in general. We've talked about Fallout. Even Silo has a whole bunch of retro future, alternate history stuff in it. In this case, I love the bright, shiny colors. I love the unapologetic rethinking of, for example, we get one shot of the rocket that they take into space. For those uninitiated, the story canonically of the Fantastic Four is that a family of a super scientist and crew and friends, go up into space, get blasted with cosmic rays, come down, and the four of them happen to get superpowers that exactly map onto the archetypes of earth, air, fire, and water. And so, but the ship was always, a Cold War era proper rocket ship, but instead they go full on Jetsons in this with those gorgeous fin-like, boosters at the bottom, and you get a glimpse of the Fantastic car, which looks ridiculous, and you get a brief moment of Herbie, which was a fascinating. It has that's the robot with a couple of.
It's got like the
eyes.
Wall-E. It's got kind of a Wall-E look to it, right?
Yes. And the reason Herbie exists at all is because in the 1970s or late 60s, I forget which one, the Fantastic Four got licensed to be a cartoon. However, there was an entanglement with the character of the Human Torch. And so they're like, well, we need 4 people. So it's like Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Girl, the Thing, and this robot.
Herbie?
And shortly after that, they retconned it into or they didn't retcon it. They current conned it. They had a reason that Herbie joined the comic books. And then later on, whatever. But the point is, this thing has
Herbie came before Wall-E. So I should have said Wall-E has a Herbie look is what you're saying. Got it.
Yes, exactly. But so things that we did not see in this, we saw everybody's superpowers a little bit. We saw flames, we saw the Thing, we saw a little bit of Invisible Girl / woman flickering. We didn't see any stretchy arms, although very clearly we see a shot of Mr. Fantastic doing equations on a obnoxiously long, ultra wide curved chalkboard. And most likely that's simply because the effects aren't done. That's going to be complicated to pull off in a not too cartoony kind of way. We also, I don't know if we saw the Silver Surfer. They're doing a gender swap thing on the Silver Surfer, but we do get to see the outline and the shadow of Galactus, which is not a giant cloud of gas. It's actually Galactus, complete with his ridiculous hat and everything. It's awesome.
What about the controversies? The one controversy that I stumbled across was people picking on the CG for Thing.
That one didn't bother me, although I do feel like kind of like the Bane controversy with the Dark Knight. They ended up redoing the voice. I wouldn't be surprised if they add a little more nuanced effects to Ibn Mas Bacharach's voice, because like the body looks like a weird gravelly monster, but the voice is that's just his voice.
It's just Eben's voice. Yeah,
exactly. And another controversy I had seen was that some of the posters, the promotional art that was released alongside of it, showed a bunch of people with only 4 fingers, and they accused them of using AI. But of course, what it was a perspective thing. Like, for example, people who are watching the video right now, there was somebody holding up, taking film, and turns out if you curve your hand in the classic
Brian, you're AI.
I know, right? And then the other thing that I have to assume we're going to have, because they announced a key element. Victor Von Doom. Dr. Doom has always been the arch nemesis of the Fantastic Four. The announcement was, from a year ago, was that Robert Downey Jr. was going to be back, was coming back to the MCU, this time as Dr. Doom. I have no inside knowledge, but it looks an awful lot to me like that's not our 1960s that the Fantastic Four are in. My guess is that's not our Earth, which means there probably is a Victor Von Doom over there who probably will be making an appearance at the end of the movie, so that and setting up whatever for Avengers Doomsday, which is coming.
And we got John Malkovich being shown with a big long beard, and people assume Red Ghost.
I have no idea. It could be, it could be a manifestation of Mephisto, aka the Devil. That's how awesome the Fantastic Four was, Tom. They took on the Devil.
Yeah. No, I remember reading the Mephisto storyline. My only concern, the only thing that nagged me in the back of my mind while I was watching this was, I want to watch this movie. I don't want it to be connected to the rest of the multiverse. And I've actually been very favorable to the multiverse idea. I don't have a problem with it. And I love some of the stuff that they've done with it. But for some reason, I was like, maybe down the road, cross into that. But this is so lovely on its own. I just want to play in this sandbox on its own for a while. I don't need to even have a post-credit scene that points the way that they might be crossing over into the Marvel world we know to this date. Just let this cook.
I think Hollywood has finally gotten the memo that they don't need to do that level of hand holding anymore. And they're like, we get it. There's a bunch of different worlds.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be different.
And it starts to feel like work if you're like, oh, have I seen all these movies? Am I going to get all these references? Like, just let me enjoy this one from the get-go, from scratch.
And luckily, it sounds like they're not, it looks to me, again, this is guessing, I bet they're either they're gonna start kind of in the action in the middle, and there'll be like some opportunity where it's like, we need you to review the final cut of the TV special. Okay, just the intro segment. Okay, sit down, family. Click. The Fantastic Four story. They did blank, blank, blank. Are you caught up, randos? Great. That was a very expensive sequence. That's exactly what they did in Iron Man to introduce Tony Stark.
Yeah, they didn't want to give you an origin story. Well, they did give you an origin story, but it was fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of promotional footage for Stark Industries. So it was in universe, and, lots of magazine headlines, and, he did this, he did that. He's the world's coolest murder man.
And now he's been captured. Okay, you're caught up. Here we go.
Yep. Exactly.
Coming July 25th. So we won't have to wait very long. You'll be there day one, I'm sure. Are you going to go like Thursday night first showing?
I would love to. We'll see how the vibes are as we get closer to that magical moment.
Okay. Yeah, but you're definitely going to see it. First steps coming soon. If you would like to pay for Brian's ticket to see Fantastic Four, you could do that. Just become a patron.
Oh yeah. How do they do that again, Tom? I have forgotten.
Oh, let me remind you that you go to a piece of software called a browser. You can do it on a phone or a laptop or a desktop personal computer. You type in these words in the browser's address bar, sometimes called something else, but it's the thing up at the top. And you type in patreon.com/Cordkillers. And then you get to become a patron of Cordkillers. It could be $1. That's all. Like, that's not even enough to cover Brian's ticket to begin with, but it's $1 per episode. So after we've done 10 episodes, you've covered Brian's ticket right there.
Tom, as we discussed, it's now been over 1 year. We're at our 1 year anniversary of live on the air, sharing our stories with you guys. They say that the paper anniversary, should be themed around paper. How about one person become a patron and give us $1 for our 1 year anniversary? Just one person. Someone out there who's been listening for years, never really thinks of themselves as a patron type. Guess what? $1? Come on. You're never going to notice. It's going to mean the world to us. Be a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
And if you do, we'll continue with the search party. The Search Party, where we try to tell you about stuff that's coming up that you might want to watch. A revival of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is near to a pilot order at Hulu. Sarah Michelle Gellar has been doing a media tour at pains to say that she didn't want to do this. She was against it. She said, I don't think you can come up with a story that will convince me it's worth revisiting this. But Chloe Zhao, Oscar winner Chloe Zhao, you might know from Nomadland, perhaps, also on Hulu.
She did She-Hulk as well, right?
That's right. Did She-Hulk as well. Chloe Zhao has convinced Sarah Michelle Gellar that she has an idea worth revisiting Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Gellar, I think this is even more interesting, is out there talking to the press like, yeah, I think she convinced me. I think it's great. And said, we will only make this show if we know we can do it right. So she's still kind of hedging her bets. Like, you know, if it starts to look like maybe it's not right, we won't do it. But that's all, no details. We have no idea like when it would be set, who would be in it, except that Sarah Michelle Gellar said she would reprise her role as Buffy.
Yeah, that to me was far and away the most surprising part. Not that they would revive the franchise,
sure,
but that they would bring her back as the protagonist, which is fascinating.
Which implies lots of de-aging, right?
No. Oh, okay. All right.
No, it clearly they're like, oh, we're gonna visit Buffy now, and we'll have to tell stories about what has been going on with her.
If they have some reason to have Angel on there, they'll have to do a lot of de-aging because he's not de-aging at all.
Yes, that's a good point, actually, right?
Apparently, vampires only just put on weight after 8 seasons.
Maybe they can retcon that somehow. He became human. He became a real. Yeah, I don't know what. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I am not one of the fans of the show that does constant rewatches and wishes like, oh, it was taken from us too soon. I wish it would come back. But I do respect it. And I know a lot of people who are like that. So I can imagine they would be mixed emotions of like, yes, I want more, but I don't know. I don't want it to, be something that taints my memories of the original. Where do you sit?
You know what? I have fond memories and I put a bow on it and it went on the shelf. It's unfortunately, there's kind of this gulf where it comes to revisiting old stuff. It's on the other side of that hump. Like, remember you were excited about Fringe when it was wrapping up and you were trying to get me to watch it. And ultimately there were just too many. I was like 26 just in the first season. And then, and that's kind of where I'm at with Buffy as well.
And it's coming to Hulu, so the new one would probably not be that long of a season in the modern day. Oh, and thank you, Audio Revolver, for pointing out Chloe Zhao did Eternals.
That's right.
Yep. So there you go. Very intriguing to follow there. Netflix has canceled the release of a 6-part docuseries about Prince because the Prince estate and Netflix have come to a mutual agreement that will let the estate develop and produce a new documentary featuring exclusive content from Prince's archive. As a result, the Netflix documentary will not be released. This is definitely a glass half full, glass half empty situation. On the one hand, you could say, oh, that's so cool. They got access to all this stuff that they could never have put in the documentary. Why put out that crappy documentary that doesn't have it? Just start over. The other side is, the Prince estate didn't like what they were going to say in the original and said, we'll give you all this cool exclusive stuff if you change the message. Where do you lean in between those two perspectives?
This is a tragedy, full stop, no question about it. This documentary filmmaker is from the same dude who did OJ Made in America, which was extraordinary, incredibly good. And he did all of this. Think about what it takes to make a good documentary, how you have to tease out the on the surface story and tell a story of what's underneath. And you have somebody in Prince who's complicated, who has layers, who is shrouded in mystery, and all anybody wants is just a peek inside that beautiful, beautiful mind that drove him to be as good as he was. And this thing, here's the heartbreaking part, Tom. It's done. It's finished. People who have seen it have said this is the most extraordinary documentary I've ever seen in my entire life. My life is changed because of it. And quite simply, it is not in the interests of the people who own the Prince estate, which, by the way, from what I understand, there's a little bit of controversy about who owns exactly which parts. But one thing that everyone agrees on is we want one of those documentaries like Bohemian Rhapsody, where everybody just shows up and like, music is great. Remember, like, for music is great. Prince is great. Everything was great. Buy Prince merch, the movie. And that's what we're going to get. Congratulations, Prince Estate. I am deeply disappointed in your lack of artistic integrity.
Let me make the counter argument. Ezra Edelman is the documentarian you're referring to. If you have faith in him, he would not have agreed to this. Because the other part of this story that's worth noting is the estate had been blocking release of the film until now. And they were able to come to an agreement with both sides happy.
Oh, I stand corrected then.
To say
that means it's not good.
to say yes, this meets Edelman standards, and they got, I'm guessing, money. I'm guessing they gave the Prince estate more money. It doesn't have to mean that they compromised on telling the facts of the story, because that's what was at issue before, was that the estate was saying, we want to review it for factual accuracy. And Edelman and Netflix were like, no, you can't. We get final cut. You can't review it for that. The estate has now softened on that, apparently, although we don't know the details of the agreement.
Yeah. So basically,
so it could be that they got the estate to finally drop. They're like, we want to review for factual accuracy, which would make it even better.
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know. This sounds to me like my guess is that Edelman was pretty happy with what he put together, because everybody who's seen it has said it's amazing.
Yeah.
But my guess is it's like, well, do you want it to get out to air at all? Then you're going to shave off some of these rough edges, but the rough edges are the good part. Do you want it to come out at all? Then you're going to smile, play ball, and you're going to work with the estate. I'm bummed. I want to see the version.
I think they could have put it out anyway, but wanted to include some bits that they didn't have full rights to.
Yeah.
And this gets them the full rights to those. So I don't know. I definitely see where you're coming from, and you're probably right, but I like the idea that, like, maybe they won. Maybe they backed the estate down. They are putting they are putting the kind of quotes out that imply like this is unfiltered and all that, which of course they would do. So that doesn't really tell you anything, but I don't know. I guess people who have seen it already will be able to see whatever they end up putting out, and that'll leak out, and then we'll know. Apple TV Plus has ordered an 8-part music battle series hosted by Megan Thee Stallion and Psy of Gangnam Style fame, produced by Lionel Richie. It's called K-Popped and combines Korean and Western artists to collaborate and reimagine their big hits in front of a live studio audience. So basically, like, take one of their songs and then they collab to make a new version of it. The audience votes on the winners of each episode. So it's not like American Idol where someone gets a record contract. Somebody just gets the honor of winning that episode. It is Apple's second music competition show after My Kind of Country, which came out from Reese Witherspoon's company in 2023.
Sounds pretty brilliant. Two money-making machines that make money together. Go for it.
Multiple money-making machines, right? Yeah. There's Apple. There's the K-pop industry. There's the U.S. music industry. There's Lionel Richie. There's, I know this is not your thing, but I'm quite intrigued, because one thing Korea does well is these kinds of reality shows. I don't know if I mentioned Synchro U. I think I have on Cordkillers. Do you remember that? Synchro U?
I'm sure. I believe that you have.
So Synchro U is a panel of celebrity musicians. This is a Korean show in Korea in front of a Korean audience. Panel of celebrity musicians and comedians and other people trying to guess if the music they're hearing has been produced by an AI or the person is actually back there singing it.
Oh,
And
that's
that,
right. Yeah, we definitely talked
yeah,
about
and that's it. That's the whole premise of the show. And they do a great job of just making you like play along and try to guess. And they do lots of things where they'll open the door and you'll see the person and he's got the mic. And then suddenly he just takes the mic away and the music keeps going. And you're like, oh, he's here, but he wasn't singing. That was AI.
That's great. So they're able to do the fake outs. And
They do lots of fun things like that. And I have a feeling that this could be along those lines of having a really good show. The other thing I'm curious about is if you're doing this live in front of an audience in Seoul with a bunch of Korean artists collabing with Western artists, what language are you speaking most of the time?
Well, I that's interesting. Well, and nowadays,
I mean, people in Korea do listen to English lyrics and stuff. So the songs I'm not worried about, but when the audience is getting their instructions, right, are those going to be on TV in English? Is the host going to be speaking English?
I got a question for all of you AI naysayers. How do you feel about somebody saying, yes, I'm just going to speak Korean because that's what I'm more comfortable with, but you have a large enough data set of me speaking English. Yes, go ahead, take all my Korean words, translate them into English, use my voice for a go.
Yeah. Yeah, you could, because you've got two options, right? One is subtitles, and the other is what Brian just described. Psy speaks pretty good English, so I can imagine they would be able to just get him to speak English when he hosted, but then the audience isn't going to be able to understand all the time what he's saying. I don't know. Fascinates me. Finally, most award shows have been seeing rises in viewership this past year, but the Grammys audience fell 9% from its airing last year. On the other hand, the Deadline article was almost entirely positive because they're like, yeah, but the Grammys had a really huge audience in like ahead of the other award shows. So even though it dropped 9%, it still got a bigger audience than a lot of other award shows.
Well, and it certainly still seems to have the same cultural impact. I mean, it's wild, having a 17-year-old daughter to hear by osmosis, she goes to school, everyone's talking about, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and CBS said it was the most social television program ever, more than any Super Bowl or presidential debate. Now, we don't have the numbers in on the Super Bowl that happened this weekend, but 102.2 million interactions on social media. I don't know if that's something that they can monetize easily, but
and inside the industry, it matters whether or not you can monetize them. But culturally, when it comes to self-promotion, that doesn't matter at all. It's like, no, we just need a number to brag about, and that number, number. But
I don't know
a more accurate reflection.
I've heard the story that artists play the Super Bowl for free. They don't get paid an appearance fee because it's just such a big stage. I don't know what the Grammys do as far as paying artists to appear, but this could be part of that conversation of like, you're going to get so much exposure, and that lowers costs and all of that. It is going to be interesting to see how these award shows adapt to a world where people, it's not even just that they don't have cable. Forget that. Like these things are always streamed now. This was streamed on Paramount Plus. It's more of the like, yeah, I'll just watch it on X. I'll just see the performances as they get posted and see what people are saying about it. I don't want to sit for 3 hours and watch a thing. It's as much the attention as it is anything else. All right, let's move on to the buried treasure.
Most people want to know why they suddenly got rich.
Buried treasure.
Buried Treasure is the segment of the show where we talk about something we have been enjoying to maybe add to your list of things you might enjoy. Brian, what you got?
So last night, my daughter, same 17-year-old, Josie, she said, hey, we're going to watch an anime. I'm like, okie dokie. And she says, you're going to cry. I was like, okie dokie. Turns out it's an anime about my 17-year-old daughter. It's about a kid artist who does manga. And yeah, you know what? I'll give very few details on this. It's extraordinarily sweet. And it does things that I found really arresting. Like the opening shot, it's based on a manga, so that makes sense. But the opening shot is like 90 unbroken seconds of a matte painting of the girl's room in 4th grade, and she's just hunched over drawing, and you just see little fidgeting motions or whatever, and it just, with the music playing, lets you sit with it. And after the establishing shot, you're like, okay, well, what do we got here? And then you find yourself visually poking around her room, getting to know the character by, oh, she's into manga, she's into this, and oh, she's, oh, I can see.
So it's Lo-Fi Girl for the first 90 seconds of the anime. Yeah,
it really is. And then the story gets going, and it does an extraordinary job of, like, there's one point where the two main characters receive a bit of good news. They find an announcement, and they look at each other, they lock eyes, and they draw in their breath, and you never get to hear the exclamation of joy. Instead, then it just slams to a very far away shot from the street during this cold winter night, and you just see the window, and you just see a little bit of dancing, and don't get to hear any of it. It's great. It's you can really tell that they had good source material in a well-beloved thing. It's called Look Back, and it's on Amazon Prime.
That's fantastic. I you know what? That's a good recommendation. You just made me want to watch that. I'm gonna take a look at that. I want to talk about the Super Bowl. I don't know if you heard of this. It's a football television show. It only happens once a year. It's kind of a weird thing. But a lot of people watch it, even if they have not followed any of the rest of the season of episodes. I watched the Super Bowl last night, but the thing for years, for decades, has been, fans watch it for the game, but everybody else watches it for the commercials.
Right.
I wasn't even that interested in the commercials anymore. And we have followed the Super Bowl on this show from how do you watch it? I guess over the air if you don't have cable, to like, ooh, they're streaming it for free, which happened a lot earlier in cord cutting history than a lot of people might imagine if they don't know otherwise. To now it's like, yeah, there's a million ways you can get it. Depends on what network it's on, but you can stream it for free. You can get it on streaming services. Like it's not difficult to watch it if you're a cord cutter and you don't have traditional cable service. And I found myself not really wanting to watch it that much. Part of it was a blowout game, so it wasn't as compelling of a game, and I'm not invested in either of the team. Part of it is that show that I mentioned a while back on Buried Treasure, Love Like the Galaxy, got so good that Eileen and I were like, we really just want to watch the next episode and see what's going to happen next. So we stopped when it began, and Eileen made some chili. And we watched the show. We watched all the way through the halftime performance. Kendrick Lamar, I thought, was fantastic. Did a great job in the halftime show. And then we sort of watched the first part of the second half for like, let's see what happens. It's kind of a blowout. And I believe it was clear that it was going to continue to be a blowout fairly shortly. So we're like, we'll just put it on a second screen. So we like set up my phone, not even a tablet, my phone, just so we could keep an eye on the score and see if like maybe it started to get close again, and watch something else while we had it playing down below. So I thought that was emblematic of where we are. If like I never worried about how to watch it or whether the stream would hold up or anything. There was none of that. It was just a matter of whether I wanted to watch it, and I had the option of like keeping it on a totally second device, not having to have another television or anything. Just be like, yeah, I'll just put it on my phone. And if it gets interesting, we'll pop it back up on the big screen again.
When it comes to the ads, now we have the luxury of kind of a filtering mechanism. It used to be that, at first the only way to watch certain things was, to watch it live. Then it was like, you wanted to be first to see it, but now you got everybody leaking their ads ahead of time.
Yeah.
You also have pretty good social filtering mechanisms. Like I'm going to wait for one of my friends to say, hey, what did you think of this? That kind of thing. And very little of it permeated its way all the way back to me, except for the Squarespace ad, which was close enough to an ad that we did on Modern Rogue. I pretended to be an old timey farmer who grew, Orville Redenbacher style websites, and it was pretty close to what they were.
What they went with there. Some of the ads were clever, and I'd seen many of them on the internet prior to the Super Bowl airing. And in fact, sometimes that ad would come on. I'm like, oh, it's that one. And I would stop looking because I'm like, yeah, I already saw that. Also, I think it's harder to make an ad that really stands out because people have been doing this for decades at this point. And so you're expecting the ads to take risks. You're expecting them to have surprises. You're expecting them to do funny things. And so you don't get blown away like you did in the 80s when somebody did a crazy ad on the Super Bowl. You're like, what was that? And everyone talked about it because everyone watched the Super Bowl. So
I learned a bit of trivia about one of the classic canonical Super Bowl equals big ad things. The Apple Classic 1984 ad.
1984 won't be like 1984.
Exactly, right? And everybody knows that it only played once at the Super Bowl, and everybody, that's where the story ends. But I found out Apple had no intention of being one and done on that ad. That was going to be the first of seeing it a million times. But they ran into a rights issue because it was so clearly 1984, and they were talking about 1984. The Orwell estate had words for them, and so that was the only time they were allowed to show it. But in classic Apple fashion, that became part of the legend of it.
Yeah, and they probably could have fought to air it, but why? When you've got that many people talking about it, and now you have that story about being sued. Like, no reason to spend a dime fighting it. That's crazy. I don't know. I think we hit the point where people don't really care. All I see now are people talking about like, the ads were okay. Like I never see the like, oh my gosh, this was the most amazing ad. I never would have expected it anymore. Like there's usually like, I like this one. This one was kind of funny. So I feel like we've hit a world where you're just never going to have that stunner like 1984.
Yeah.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us, folks, cordkillers@gmail.com. Brian, what you got for us?
Hey man, dude, the action is on my email list, and I mean it this time because I put out the word every so often. I send out an email with a silly idea, and I kind of gauge, see what happens. And getting people to respond is a certain level of challenge, but getting people to respond and put effort into a thing is very difficult to do. But I mused about what it would be like. Hey, if Brian did an hour-long advice radio show, what would you ask him? Record a 1-minute clip and send it to me. I got too many of them to even do in a show, and I put all my effort. I made an opening theme song and recorded an hour of it, and then I distributed it only to people on my email list. So out there is a pretty good performance of Brian doing an hour-long advice podcast. It was really neat.
That's so cool, and only people on the email list get to see it. At all. We, obviously, naturally, as we talk about stories here on Cordkillers, I constantly am talking about the branding and advertising space and stuff. And so I'm starting to tiptoe into the same skills that, I use to promote myself. I increasingly am interested in putting out for hire. And one of the bits of advice that I give to people is increasingly as YouTube becomes a meritocracy, it really is becoming an inefficient marketplace of ideas, which means it's harder to get stuff out there. And I love the idea of email is the last thing that's close to a fair shake out there, where you really do talk to the real person. And even better, it's a private conversation. So as a result, like outside of me talking about this to you right now, nobody knows about it. So if it was a bad podcast, I'll get an email saying so, but that's about it. But instead, a lot of people wrote very thoughtful things. Thank you to everybody who wrote back. And for those of you guys who are ready to finally get weird emails from Brian, just head on over and sign up for a giveaway at gimme.scamstuff.com. Do it now. Let's scan the horizon.
Send a scanning to avoid.
Scanning the horizon!
Is it weird, Brian, that every time I see a news item about Lachlan Murdoch, I think of the Succession TV show?
Are you kidding me? It'd be weird if you didn't. Oh yeah, that's right. There's a real version of that going on.
They're not the same. But Fox executive chairman Lachlan Murdoch told analysts the company will finally get into the mainstream paid streaming subscription game this year. And I've already imagined 3 different storylines from Succession that led to this point. If you don't realize, up until now, Fox, okay, so it gets a little complicated if you really want to understand it, but Fox sold a lot of itself to Disney, but not all of it. And so there's the news operation, the national sports operation, and a little bit of a few other things under Fox.
And FX.
FX got sold to Disney. The studio got sold to Disney. The only things under Fox are news, sports, and a couple other things, including their local channels. Fox has operated Tubi as well, which it acquired, and it operates Fox Nation, which is kind of a super fan streaming service for $8 a month. Two interesting things here. One is Fox has been very clear of like, yeah, we make money on licensing our shows. You want to watch you want to watch shows that we make? You can watch them all over the place, and we get money every time you watch them. Thankfully, we don't have to spend money running the streaming. So this is a change to them going, you know what? Maybe we should come up with a paid streaming subscription service that is more widespread than Fox Nation, right? They also ran an ad in the Super Bowl for a Martin Scorsese series that will be on Fox Nation. So they're already kind of broadening out what Fox Nation is by doing that. Murdoch said he planned the service to be modest. It would contain content of Fox News and Fox Sports, but it would not incur any additional rights costs. So it sounds like he's thinking of something that just bundles in FS1, Fox News, the Fox, broadcast network, and maybe some original stuff for streaming like that Scorsese thing that they advertised. And that's it. We're not talking about building a Netflix where you're acquiring a bunch of stuff as well. What do you think of this, Brian?
I suppose it's never too late if there's a market for it. And they don't get to ride a hype cycle. I don't think anybody is shouting finally. I don't think anybody is shocked, amazed, surprised. We certainly aren't hearing this in conjunction. Like they put modest in the press release, Tom, which is a press release about where your expectations should be. The press release might as well have say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad you all gathered here for this press conference. Today, the Murdoch family was cleaning their couch and found a bunch of nickels. Thank you very much. We'll be not taking questions at this time.
We'll be adding that to the P in the P&L. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah. And for those of you taking this literally, it wasn't a press release. It was talking to analysts, investor analysts. But, when you're talking to analysts, it's going to be treated like a press release. I guess
what I'm saying is it is a managed message about what you're doing, no matter what the release.
And it is very much like finding nickels in the couch. I think you're right, which is like, we've got all this content. We could easily do a streaming thing and not change anything else we do and just make extra money. Fox Nation is showing us that. Tubi is showing us that. So maybe we just do that. I'm curious if they build on Fox Nation, which is kind of where my head's at after seeing the Scorsese thing. Although that Scorsese thing could just be a test run where they're going to do it on a new thing. Or do they add a ad-free tier to Tubi that includes this stuff? They could do that too.
I guess we'll see.
The Verge reports that Sonos is planning to launch a streaming TV device later this year. The sources tell The Verge it would be in the $200 to $400 price range, which would make it probably the most expensive TV streaming box on the market. Verge says it's a black box, slightly thicker than a deck of cards, runs Android with an interface over the top that was designed by Sonos, supports Sonos' own brand of voice control, and will have HDMI switching functions. So if you have an HDMI switcher and a Roku right now, for example, this would replace both of those. And of course, it will work with Sonos speakers for surround sound.
I'll be curious. They could easily capture $200 to $400 from me, even though I'm happy and don't need any kind of streaming set-top box. If they have some way to bridge, like Sonos devices have always been high margin and they've gone through multiple generations, and the generations have different layers that don't talk to each other. So as a result, like weird artifacts happen. Like in order to, I got 7 Sonos things around campus here, and so I have to use the old deprecated app in order to control. If they were to bridge that, and I don't see any reason that they couldn't, with a beefier device, then they would. I have no interest in a Sonos set-top box. But if it says, oh, by the way, all of your things work together, it'll be, Sonos has always been looking for folks who don't mind spending a pretty penny on stuff. And so they'll sucker. You got me again, Sonos.
I won't say it's impossible, but it's pretty close to impossible that that'll be the case, given all of the problems they had with that app and the bridging and everything.
Oh, so okay. Well, if that's something that, I guess maybe I'm just projecting on what I hope.
Yeah, no.
To take $400 from me. So
Indeed. Disney said it now has 124.6 million Disney Plus subscribers, but that is down 700,000 compared to its subscriber number in the fourth quarter of 2024. Hulu gained 1.6 million and was profitable for the second quarter in a row with revenue up 9%. Disney has been cracking down on password sharing since September, also raised prices in the US, and it's the first drop in subscribers since Disney Plus launched. Disney also said it expects to lose subscribers next quarter as well. So it's making the money. That's the plan. I keep going over this over and over. The plan when they gave you cheap streaming services was get people to subscribe, because when you get them to subscribe, they are more likely to stay subscribed. The plan now is make money off them. So even if you lose some subscribers, if you're making more money per subscriber, that you're bringing the money in that pays for the service. Hulu is profitable. Hulu's also growing. Hulu doesn't have the same subscriber crackdown that Disney Plus has, and Disney Plus, while still profitable, is losing subscribers. Netflix cracked down on password sharing and gained subscribers. So maybe these things have nothing to do with each other. I have no idea.
Yeah, I really okay. Things that bring in new subscribers are launches of new shows, exclusive movies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the YouTube-verse, you see a loss of subscribers, ironically, every time you post a new video, because what happens is a new video comes out, people are reminded that you exist, and some percentage of them, like when nobody knows if you just pop up, you're only going to lose people because people have to see your content before they think to subscribe for the first time. Whereas if they've forgotten about it, they're like, oh, that thing, I no longer want that. And then they unsubscribe. In the case of a streaming service, month after month after month, a press release shows up in their inbox saying, you're paying money for us. Continue. And so it's important that they offset it with exciting new things, new reasons to stick around. And if they've been quiet, this is all extremely valuable data. It informs how much they need to invest in new stories to tell everyone versus whether or not they could just kind of do some profit taking for a little bit.
Two things here. Some of the more successful shows on Disney Plus have been Hulu shows, and they made a big deal about bringing Hulu into Disney Plus. I wonder if that had an effect of making people go, why am I paying for Disney Plus when these are the shows that are Hulu that I like? Let me just get Hulu instead.
That could be. That definitely could be.
Yeah. A judge has issued a temporary restraining order on Sony's plan to distribute Jeopardy! We talked about this last week. Sony makes Jeopardy!, but CBS distributes it. And Sony has accused CBS of not trying to make enough money off of the distribution and was going to take the distribution, but a judge has stopped them from doing that until they can work it out in court, whether Sony has the right to do that or not.
Yep.
Warner Brothers Entertainment has been uploading a selection of full movies to a playlist on YouTube. That includes films like Waiting for Guffman from the hilarious Christopher Guest, The Science of Sleep, directed by Michelle Gondry, and The Mission, starring Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. So these are not throwaways. They are putting movies that they can sell, that they can attract people to subscribing to Max for on YouTube.
I did not know about this, The Science of Sleep, Michelle Gondry movie. That sounds awesome. I think this is a savvy play, especially because we've talked about what the future for YouTube looks like in terms of whether it's just going to be an over-the-top service or whether there's an opportunity for people to, increasingly buy. We've speculated about micro subscriptions to a particular show or whatever, but it's like, I think this is kind of low key an acknowledgement that YouTube is not going to vanish overnight. It it is as solid of a platform as movie theaters or broadcast television or cable at this point.
Yeah,
and so
man.
it makes sense to, at very little expense out of pocket for Warner Brothers, to make some stuff available.
Warner Brothers Discovery is looking for ways to save and make money. And that can focus your mind when you're in that reality, to realize like, hey, you know, this myth we tell ourselves that if we have a movie in multiple places and one of them's for free, no one will ever buy the movie. That's not true. And we're giving up a bunch of money by doing that. Maybe instead of pretending that we will drive up sales of Waiting for Guffman or subscriptions of Max for people who want to stream Waiting for Guffman, we just put it on YouTube and the algorithm serves it to people who haven't been thinking about Waiting for Guffman. And then they watch the hours plus movie. We get paid by YouTube per minute for that. If they're on premium, that's free money that, you know, a very low expense of maintaining the channel and uploading things to it would get us.
Well, and also extremely rich data, because keep in mind, you only need like 1,000 data points. And then after that, like when they do a nationwide poll, Tom, you know this, they only call 1,200 people, because it's not worth the expense to go any more than 1,200 people, because you're getting like the 5th decimal point of standard deviation at that point. So in this case, there's probably a cloud of movies that demographically are identical to Waiting for Guffman, and somebody somewhere wants to know what those movies are worth. Guess what they could do? Give away Waiting for Guffman in a non-competing platform over there, and it will organically, again, YouTube is a meritocracy. It's going to find its audience. And then not only do you get to track how popular it is, you get all the demographic information on that cohort.
Yes.
And now you know what to do with the rest of your catalog. So it's basically just like YouTube is a what is it? It's not a CMS content
management system. It's a CDN. Yeah.
It's a CDN that pays you. It's also R&D that pays you. It's also market research that pays you. And the weird part is it's great data that you get from YouTube.
Yeah. And YouTube's fine giving it to you. They don't have a problem. They want to give it to you. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, quick side jag, this is something that we could talk about at another time, but it's fascinating to me that we're seeing an entire generation of young adults who grew up knowing how to play the game of media. So just like people were in the Super Bowl have to hear about the folks, the armchair quarterbacks, there are now a whole generation of armchair directors, armchair producers who want to tell you how they did it in their 5th grade media thing that they did.
All right, folks, let's finish up with the chatter.
You've got mail.
We got an email from Martin. They just raised the price again on Netflix in the UK. And Martin says last time Netflix raised their price in the UK, it raised it to £17.99 per month for the 4K plan. I felt I didn't use the service enough to justify the price, so I dropped down to the £10.99 HD tier. So my answer to what's the most I would pay for Netflix is somewhere between those two prices. A Nonny Moose wrote, Netflix has never been worth more than $10 a month to me. Even when sharing it with my family, it was never really worth what I was paying. Not thrilled about Apple's pricing, but I signed back up a month ago to get caught up on shows. So thanks for the folks letting us know their particular price points. Appreciate that. James C. Smith said, I canceled my cable internet in favor of DSL since that was cheaper, more reliable, and delivered all the bandwidth my family of 4 needs. The only reason I had cable in the first place was the pandemic. When work from home started in 2020, I thought I should upgrade to something faster. My company paid for internet service for everyone working from home. I got cable, and I kept my old DSL as a backup. A couple of years ago, when the cable service went out, I switched to my DSL backup and realized it's good enough. I canceled cable that day and never regretted it. DSL works fine for Netflix, Xbox, work from home, Zoom, and everything else we throw at it.
Tom, it's been a minute since I've thought about digital subscriber lines as a technology.
I actually canceled mine. Different situation than James, obviously, but cable went out. I switched over to my backup DSL line and it didn't work very well for what I needed to do. So goodbye. That's what we did with that. Matt in Leeds writes, for viewers who love the shows Silo and Severance, it's worth highlighting that there are some great behind the scenes videos on YouTube that you might enjoy. For Silo, Adam Savage of Mythbusters fame talks to folks from various production departments, and his enthusiasm for the craft is infectious. You can watch him after you finished series 2, since they do contain minor spoilers. For Severance, I'd recommend the video of Ben Stiller and Adam Scott breaking down the series 2 opening scene. There's a way more to it than you might think. The motion controlled camera they talk about is the same one that the slow-mo guys use in some of their videos, and that thing can move fast. There's also a very good email in the Gmail about my audio descriptions, but it's an audio file. I don't know if we have it to play.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll see if we can, Amos, would it be too much for me to ask you to add that in post? I guess now, or maybe it is.
We'll do.
Okay, cool.
So there you go.
Basically straight from an appreciator of your fine craft, Tom.
Hello, Tom and Brian. This is Thomas from New Hampshire. Just wanted to say hey, and I really wanted to say I appreciated your audio described version of the After Talk last week. I'm blind, and with all the shows I watch on the TV, on my Apple TV, are audio described. And Tom, if you ever get tired of doing tech news and cord cutter news, I would sign you up to do audio description. You did it just right. You must be listening to it on your TV. You must have heard it before, how they describe things. You know, just the pauses were just right, I thought, and it was just awesome. And I could visualize everything that you were talking about with Brian doing the camera switching, and it was just great. So thanks, guys. Keep up the good work, and talk to you later.
Tom leans back and smiles smugly that you are pleased. And finally, Moles writes, hey, Reckoners, just thought I'd draw your attention to the Australian ABC show Muster Dogs. I think it should be on Netflix in your neck of the woods. It's basically a reality show about the accelerated training of a band of farm dogs starting as puppies. The puppies are distributed among several farms around Australia, and the dog's progress is monitored and tested along the way. Competition aspect takes a backseat to the emotional investment in the dogs, their progress, and their handlers' lives. There's 3 seasons, third one just came out here, as well as a Where Are They Now special. It's probably the #1 show we look forward to in our house. Thank you, Moles. Folks, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live at twitch.tv/nightattack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I reckon we'll talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.